Good afternoon, everybody. This is Irene Weisman, immigration attorney. Today is Friday, February the 7th, 2025. What did I want to discuss today? So there is a new guidance from the Executive Office Immigration Review, which is the organization that controls the immigration courts. And the new guidance released a couple of days ago, basically it said that they will reject asylum applications that are not considered complete. What does that mean? First of all, no blank spaces. Second of all, so if you just envision the form I-589 application for asylum, and the first 3 pages is biographic information, and the remainder pages actually have to do with your claim. Okay, what I often see from people who submitted the application, the document themselves, or unfortunately many lawyers do that, they put see statements, or see attached statement, and they don't attach it, or will be provided in the future, God knows when. Okay, that will no longer fly. Okay, so the immigration court will reject asylum applications that are considered incomplete. Okay, they haven't said anything about USCIS for affirmative applications yet, but I believe they had this policy from before. So yeah, so that's possible. In my own personal practice, I just don't do that. I do not submit incomplete applications. So, I mean, for me, it's not really going to impact anything, but, the purpose of this is education. So hence, going forward, just keep that in mind, okay? But for my own clients who are delaying their statements, or whatever, we no longer can delay. Okay, but I always tell all of my clients, even if you don't submit your statement with the 589, I need your statement to be done, because we need answers for that portion of the asylum application. I need information to put in there. It's important. So let's sort of go through that 589 application. By the way, there are other news that I need to discuss, but I'm going to do that next week. There's just a lot's been going on this week. I'm going to get to it. More memos from, and it's also coming from the immigration court regarding, fraud investigations and other things. I'll try to discuss it next week. I don't think I'm going to get to it this weekend, but hopefully Monday. Today I just want to devote to that 589 and the guidance on the acceptance of only complete applications. Okay, so 589 application. I didn't print one out, so I don't want to use somebody else's 589, whatever. So I'm gonna go from my memory, but you'll know what I'm talking about, and you can always open up the 589 so you'll know what I'm referring to. First page, just really name, all names you've ever used, date of birth, place of birth, passport information, language information, entry information. Okay, obviously try to be as complete as possible. Second and third page, spouse and children. Okay, if you're currently, they don't ask for former spouses, but if you're currently married, you got to list your spouse, and you got to list all your children, okay, no matter where they are in the world. And then you have to also indicate whether you are including your spouse and your kids on your application or not. And if your spouse and kids are not in the United States, you have to provide their location, where they are located at this time. Then the next portion of the 589 application is addresses. So they're asking for the last address in your home country, and if from the country of which you're seeking persecution, and if your last address abroad is not from the country where you are seeking persecution, then they want the last address abroad from wherever that was. Okay, So if you entered through the south border, it would be somewhere in Mexico, right? Um, Depends on where you came from. Then they're asking for addresses for the last 5 years. It doesn't matter where it is, in the United States or abroad. Then they're asking for, and I always ask my clients, when my clients know this, I don't care how temporary, you gotta give me the addresses, all the addresses for the last 5 years, okay? Employment for the last 5 years, where did you work for the last 5 years, okay, with dates, and what did you do, what was your profession, education, starting with high school, okay, then going to all the all the places where you may have received education, information for mom, dad, and siblings, where they were names, where they were born, where they are right now. um, and then it sort of gets into the claim. By the way, let me go back to that first page of the 589. There is a tiny little checkbox that says check it or check off the box. If you're also applying for withholding of removal, you always want to check that off. That's under the United Nations Convention Against Torture, so you definitely always want to check that off. If for some reason you're not eligible for asylum, at least you have that checked off for the withholding. Then basis of the claim, okay, race, religion, nationality, political opinion, particular social group, and the torture convention, okay. You're going to check off all that apply. Sometimes it's just one, sometimes it's three, sometimes it's all of them. Torture convention, always check off, okay. Then it gets into the basis of the claim, okay. Has something happened to you in your home country, that you fear persecution? If it did, then basically what you're doing is, your entire claim, you're putting it into a few sentences, okay, to try and fit in there. You can always go to the last page, but I try to just basically condense the claim into a few sentences and put it in there. Then especially like the major instances and stuff like that. So there's a few questions with why are you afraid? Has anything happened to you? What happened? Please describe what happened. And it's just to you, your family members, your friends, relatives. Then do you fear torture if you are returned to your home country? Do you fear persecution if you return to your home country? Why? Have you ever been arrested, detained, cited, interrogated? Okay, so you gotta think about your claim. Okay, were you detained? Were you maybe not detained, but you were interrogated? Okay, you gotta put that information in there. Again, I condense it, just put the date, and then whether it was arrest, detention, interrogation, citation, okay, whatever it may. And this is not just for you, by the way, that's for you or members of your family. Then there are questions about membership in organizations, okay. You gotta enclose it, okay, and you gotta read the question carefully. If you served in the military, you gotta put that in there, and your rank. If a religious organization, you got to put that in there. If you have a religious claim and you are a member of a particular religious affiliation, you got to put that in there. If you are a member, or you were a member of a political party, movement, union, student organization, you got to put that in there, especially as it relates to the nature of your claim. Then there are questions about, 1 year. Are you filing this within the 1 year or outside of the 1 year? If outside of the 1 year, you got to provide a reason why you're outside of the 1 year, okay? And then there is a question about, did you, after you left the country of persecution, have you ever returned to that country? That's a tricky question, by the way. I've had numerous discussions with asylum officers on this one, because something may have happened to a person, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, right, in their home country, and it's in their statement because, you know, I'll give you an example, a nationality claim. Um, Problems may have started in a person's childhood, right? But then, they still lived there, they traveled, for work, for pleasure, but like an extreme event is what caused them to leave, right? But the persecution started many years ago. So I guess it would depend on which officer you speak to, what to put for that question. But again, it's all going to be individual. It just really depends on your story and really what happened to you, how to answer that particular question. Okay, then there are questions about, have you traveled through any other countries before you came to the United States, and did you have any status in those countries? Did you apply for asylum in those countries? Okay, so very important question. Many people don't answer to the question, but very, very important. I gotta provide the information there as well. Then there's question about arrests in the United States. If you came through the south border and you were detained and you were in a detention center, you gotta respond to that question. Obviously, if there's any other arrests, you gotta disclose. Okay, very important. So if something is really a no, then you put a no. If it's a yes, then it's a yes, and then you have to provide an explanation. And going back to the first part with the biographic information and the education and the school information, if you filled something in, or if something doesn't apply to you, then I'll respond not applicable, NA. I don't leave any spaces blank. I don't want my applications rejected for that reason. So don't leave any blank spaces, and carefully answer to the questions that do apply to you. Think about your claim, and think about your statement. It's good to have the statement ready when you're submitting your 589, so that there's no discrepancy between the 589 and your statement. I understand that the statement is going to go into a lot more details of the events that occurred, but you gotta condense the responses for the 589 for that to be a complete 589, okay? So that you don't have any NAs or anything. So, now they'll just reject it, but before they rejected it, there were many judges that just said, this is no good, you gotta redo the 589, I'm not accepting this, okay? Many judges had their own individual policies like that. And if you're claiming asylum based on a particular social group, pretty much at this point, any judge is gonna want a statement. You have to articulate what that particular social group is, okay? So that's the news. 589 has to be fully complete. Otherwise it will be rejected. I'm talking about the defensive asylum application. Hopefully this helped. Next week I will get into the fraud memos that came out yesterday and other things. Okay, have a good weekend, everybody.